Let's get started. Today we are ranking the legends based on how effective they can be on the battlefield. Remember, this is still an opinion, but I am going to try my best to not be biased. I'm going to explain each legend briefly and then estimate where the changed legends will be on when the patch comes out. I originally explained each legend in depth for over an hour, but then a new patch came out while editing it, so now I'm making this one. So let's do this. Starting with D tier, we have Ashe. The reason I'm saying Ashe, she is way too situational. The tactical, you have to hit a target, and the ultimate mostly forces your teammates into a place, and there's just better ultimates in the game. And the passive is only really useful for finding players and fights, which only really happens on Storm Point where you really need it the most. With that, Ashe is at the bottom of D tier. Next up on D tier, we have Mirage. Mirage, a very useful passive. I love it. It is only really useful when there's a lot of stuff happening around you, but it is still effective. The tactical could use changes. It'll bamboozle, but just seeing a symbol isn't useful enough. The ultimate I find really useful for emoting. I like doing that a lot. Other than that, it's visual clutter, and you can also just find the original person just by looking for the flashing decoy. Next up, we're going into C tier, starting with Bloodhound. Bloodhound is an amazing starter legend for beginners. The passive in the bird is supposed to help you locate players. He is a tracker legend, but because of how fast-paced this game is, Bloodhound isn't really useful other than knowing where people are for a brief amount of time with the tactical, and the ultimate can be really useful. It is probably best for just staying aggressive in fight, but for the most part it is just an aggressive based tool only. Next up we have Seer. Seer used to be the most overpowered and broken legend in the game, but now Seer has finally fallen down to C tier after years of being in S tier. Just a few months ago, Seer was changed with a rework and was still actually overpowered, but all he needed was a time nerf, and now Seer just has Revenant's old tactical, so it's mostly just annoying. His passive was hugely nerfed. The passive is only really useful when enemies are right up close to you, and the ultimate, you throw that down, scan everyone around you, but people can just walk out of it. There's too many movement legends in this game. The ultimate is only really useful when you know the other team is going to be staying where you are. Now we are heading into B tier, starting off with Lifeline. Lifeline, I love the drone. The healing is really useful. The passive allows you to get your teammates back up into the fight, which that part you need to make sure your teammates are behind cover in order to use the passive. If you use it mid-fight, it is possible for your teammates just to get destroyed if they don't cancel the revive and put their shield up, which is an option. If you are the one getting revived, you can cancel the revive, which is a really useful and awesome change, but sometimes people like me like to try to just stick the res, and it just doesn't work out all the time. You just need to make sure the person getting revived is behind cover. The drone, definitely the best part of the kit, just going behind cover in rough situations when you need to get ready for a third party. You can just pop the drone and then shield that at the same time to get both shield and health up. The ultimate has a smart loot system, so you can get the best kit. You get a guaranteed shield upgrade for your team. Definitely most effective end circle when you have those close rings where you have almost no cover around. You can just throw down the ult and you have a pretty decent chunk of cover. Alright, next up on B tier we have Octane. He has a tactical, he feeds himself with drugs, he runs fast, but then he also damages himself. But I do think the amount of damage he takes from a stim is just a little bit too much. The passive does regenerate his health, but it is also pretty slow, so you do have to combo it with syringes sometimes. But for the most part, Octane is a heavily aggressive focused legend. Of course, you have that jump pad, which allows you to do some pretty cool movement. You can use it for repositioning or going towards players to finish a job, and yeah, Octane's a pretty good all-around legend, but I do think there are more impactful legends. Next up we have Gibraltar. Tactical dome, awesome. You have those bubble fights, really fun. You have the passive, which honestly is still really broken. You have that arm shield while ADSing. That is a beast when it comes to medium to close range fights, so if you want to fight a Gibby, you have to get them from behind, try to defeat them. It is really hard to fight a Gibraltar alone. Gibraltar Gibraltar's ult recently got changed, so now it's faster than Bangalore's, which is weird because I think Bangalore's is worse than Gibraltar's. But anyways, Gibraltar is all around good legend and is useful for those bubble fights and engaging in close range. Next up, we have Caustic. He's the gas master. You have the tactical for gas and the ultimate for gas. He is one of the most annoying legends to fight against. So with that in mind, he is in between B tier. The passive does not take effect much, but being able to use the tactical for cover and activating it when enemies are around you, and also barricading doors and buildings, and being able to throw the ultimate of gas towards your opponent without them waiting to activate the trap is also really useful, especially end circle. It is really useful. Next up, we have Loba. A lot of people have Loba in high S tier, but I just don't see it. Loba is a good escape legend for the tactical and is really good for the team, but I think her strengths lie on that team play with the ultimate. Just being able to have the ultimate you can throw down, get infinite ammo around you, and being able to see all of those guns and grenades and utility items around you to use. The ultimate's definitely the best part of her kit, but the tactical is way too buggy and way too situational for me to say that Loba is any higher than B tier. Next up, we have Crypto. Crypto has that drone. You can just throw out the drone and it'll scan anyone in front of you, and then you can enter the drone to continue flying that drone around, looking for opponents. You can look at banners to see how many teams are around you, and you can also pick up teammate banners for respawning, combo Crypto with a mobile respawn beacon for those instant revives, and you can also scan survey beacons instantly as well to see how many enemies are around you on the entire map. The only bad part about Crypto is that his entire kit revolves around the drone and he does not have a passive. Letting your teammates see the scans is not a passive, that's just a built-in feature. So I don't know why that's there. But he's still a fun legend to play with the drone flying around. Being able to get your whole team back up is just awesome. Next up, we have Fuse. Now, Fuse is getting a slight buff for the next patch. He'll be able to deploy his knuckle cluster even faster now. And with that in mind, I do think Fuse is still around middle of B tier because his ultimate just doesn't do much. It mostly either captures players or limits them off to certain sections, but for the most part, it is just a slight annoyance. Don't get me wrong, I have died to Fuse's ult way more times than I should have. But if you're playing a movement legend, you can easily escape it. And being able to hold more grenades, well, that's just the most annoying part about Fuse's kit. Fuse is really good at annoying players, just like Caustic is. And the only reason why I'm having Fuse above Crypto is because I'm giving Fuse a chance with his new buff. So we'll see where he lies on the next patch, but this is my prediction. Next up on B tier, we have Ballistic. Ballistic is one of our newest legends, and he is just a blast to play. I think his kit relies too much on the aggressive style because he has no cover, and the only team utility he has is the ultimate, being able to run faster as the unarmed speed with guns out, and the infinite reserved ammo is really useful with that ult. Yeah, I think that his ult is the best part of the kit. Being able to stop players from shooting their gun for a short time is just crazy, but in gameplay, you can just quickly go behind cover, let that animation play out, and then continue fighting. The way to use the tactical of most effectively is right in front of the player, or just annoying them from long range if you'd like to as well. Being close quarters with an enemy, stopping them fight for a second, you can get the upper hand and shoot just a little bit longer than your opponent, and that can get you an easy kill when used right. And you also have that passive where it can carry up to 3 guns, but that third gun is mostly only useful for that sling, of course. But if you get in that situation where you use 2 of your guns, you could switch to your third one, but that would be extremely situational for you to get yourself into that. With that, Ballistic is at B tier. Next up, we have Vantage. Vantage is rated too low on other people's tier lists, so I'm giving her time to shine. I originally had her up at A tier, but then remembered the other movement legends do just a little bit more than Vantage, but that doesn't mean she isn't good at what she's good at. Vantage, you have the tactical, you can get super high up to cover around your opponents. You can use it for repositioning, you can use it for aggressive aggression. You can use it to get away. There is a lot of use cases for it. What I see some vantages do is you set up the bat right above your teammate's banner, so you have it ready to fly up to it. You grab the teammate's banner and then you fly towards the bat and you get an easy escape. When that ends up working, it is really satisfying to see. Other than that, you have the passive, of course, which everyone wanted for Pathfinder's passive. Being able to scan out and zoom across the map, you're able to see enemy shields, how many players are there on the team, which involves a little bit of scanning, but that is mostly useful connected to the ultimate, which you have a built-in sniper as an ultimate, which you get considerably close to the start of the game since you get the bullets over time, and the more times you shoot a player, the more damage it will end up doing, and the bullets increase over time the longer you shoot it. So yeah, it's a really good sniper, and overall a really good legend. Next up on B tier we have Rampart. Rampart is also getting a buff next patch. You are going to be able to have the amps covered down even faster, and that is a huge change. Even if it's by 1 second, that is a huge change. We'll have to see in game when the update comes out, because the cover took forever to come up. Having that cover come up just a second faster is huge. You also have the passive with the LMG increased magazines, and of course the minigun. A lot of people say it's overpowered, and I agree that it is really powerful, but I actually mostly use the minigun, not for starting fights, but for finishing fights. I use Rampart's minigun to mainly finish knocks and breaking down doors. I think that's really useful. Rampart is good, but I do agree that Rampart is not in A tier, which is what we're going into right now. First, in A tier, we have Wraith. Now, Wraith I can sometimes play, sometimes can't, mostly can't. I'll leave the big streamers up to Wraith. You have the tactical, you have a free get out of a jail card. Being able to go invincible is really useful. Having that portal for the distance, being able to reposition with that is really useful. Wraith's at a good spot, and I'd put her in A tier. Next up, we have Wattson. Wattson, really good at setting up defense. I think Wattson does a better job at her cover and as a control legend than Caustic. You have the fence, mostly useful indoors, but you can have some fun situations outdoors as well, with trapping your opponents and just tasing them a little bit and then finishing them. That is always possible. Very situational when it comes to that. The ultimate is really powerful, having those regeneration of shields and also destroying ordinances from the sky and airstrikes coming down. The ultimate is really useful outdoors, and having those fast recharging fences around really useful. You have the passive. You have a slight shield regeneration, but it is really small and almost unnoticeable. But her shield regeneration is definitely most powerful in her ult, of course, which can be given out to the entire team. Being able to carry 2 ultimate accelerants per slot is really useful. I wish other legends had that as well as a passive. Like Vantage could definitely benefit with having the ultimate accelerate passive. But without further ado, Wattson is a good A tier legend. Next up we have Catalyst. Catalyst is for some reason an S tier in other people's books, but I do not agree with that. Catalyst is a good legend and is really hybrid when it comes to situations. Being useful indoors and outdoors is awesome, but I do think she's mostly useful indoors. The Catalyst wall is definitely best at dividing fights and also being able to revive teammates out in the open, and also for stopping long distance fire. The passive can be used just like Wattson's fence or Rampart's wall with covering up a door. The only downside with the passive is that you can only cover up to 2 doors, and the tactical is mostly only useful for stopping enemies from coming through those doors that you put your passive on and ensuring them that they don't come close to that. You can use the tactical outside, and if enemies are close enough to it, the ball will come up and you can use that as cover. That is also very situational. Catalyst is a good hybrid legend out in the battlefield, but there are other legends that can do just a little bit more. Next up we have Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a really good solo legend for the most part. You do have that ultimate where you can fly the entire team out of a fight. Everyone was saying that from the introduction of evac towers, Valkyrie is useless now. I completely disagree. Valkyrie is still a really good legend, having that passive of course with the jetpack, being able to reposition really fast. You do not want to fly directly up in the air. You will get shot at easily. The point of the jetpack is to be able to reposition forward and backwards and around your opponents to cover instead of just flying up to the air endlessly. Valkyrie is good for getting up to high points as well, and the tactical is mainly just for maybe doing damage. It doesn't work out all the time. The other passive for Valkyrie, being able to scan everyone in the dropship coming down, so useful. Next up we have Horizon. Horizon used to be in the top 3 of S tier. Now Horizon has finally gone down. I do not know exactly where she should be, but I'm going to put her above Valkyrie just in case. Horizon's been in the top 3 of S tier for a really long time now, but now she has been mega nerfed. You can't go up the lift as fast anymore. 20% decrease is going to be huge, and the hover time has also been reduced. The ultimate is still really useful. You can still use it for breaking doors and just causing mayhem. And of course, the passive, you don't take fall stun, which is why I still have Horizon at high A tier. We'll see how Horizon plays out in the next patch. Next up, we have Pathfinder. Pathfinder, one of the best movement legends in the game. You have that zip line, you have that grapple, you have the friendly neighborhood robot that slings around. I love the change where you can just recharge the zipline gun just by looking up at the sky where a care package is falling. I love that change. So you can just zipline just everywhere, and you can also zoom in with the zipline to get even further distance, and the grapple of course is useful. The only downside of the grapple is that it has a cooldown. Next up on A tier, we have Mad Maggie. The best part of her kit is definitely the tactical. You can deal fire damage to people through walls. You can stop people from pushing you. Combine the tactical with other abilities to cause even more mayhem. Mad Maggie is really useful for that pressure of the drill, and also the ultimate where you throw a big wrecking ball and get speed boost along the way. Really good for rotating the circle, and also it does damage to enemies if you get up close and personal with it. You also have the passive where you run faster with shotguns out, so if you like using shotguns, play Mad Maggie. The drill is only a little bit situational. You will have a lot of times where enemies are trying to get you on the door, so that's why I think Mad Maggie is really useful. Next up, at the top of A tier, we have Revenant. Revenant Reborn has been unleashed. We have a whole new rework for him. We have a new tactical allowing you to pounce towards opponents, so you play into that more stealthy, aggressive playstyle the Revenant should be. Being able to hunt down your victims and use that ultimate for extra 75 shield. I hope that gets a little bit lowered. I think it's a little bit too much, but it is balanced because you have a bigger hitbox when using the ultimate. So the best case I find the ultimate is starting fights, and when you're really low on health, you can pop that ultimate and just have that shield to be able to continue running towards cover. The passive is definitely my favorite part of the kit. You can now climb really fast horizontally now, and it is just so satisfying to use. Climbing up fast was already fun, but now we can wall climb horizontally, and it's the closest thing we'll get to Titanfall movement in Apex outside of the Halloween shadow events. I love the Revenant rework. That places Revenant at the top of A tier. This is where I've placed the most effective legends in my opinion. So we are starting off S tier with Newcastle. I originally put Horizon here, but with the nerf, Horizon of course got dropped down, and now we have Newcastle. Newcastle is for some reason one of the lowest picked legends in the entire game, and I just do not understand why. You have a shield that can move. You have the ultimate where you can fly across the map to help your teammates. Revive them with that moving shield. It's basically Lifeline's old healing, but you can now move with it. The only downside with the passive is that it is a small shield, but you can combo it with your tactical to have even a bigger self-protection around it. So using all of your abilities together and cohesion is just really good with Newcastle. It has so many use cases. You can even fly towards teammates' banners to grab them with your ultimate. And yeah, I think Newcastle is just a really good legend, and not enough people play him, but without further ado, I do place him at S tier. Finally, we have the final legend in S tier, the top of the tier list. Definitely not my most played character. We have Bangalore. Bangalore is the most hybrid legend in the game that that can just do it all. You have the smoke for cover, smoke for blinding enemies, smoke for blinding your teammates. You have the passive where if enemies shoot by you, you run faster. You basically have an automatic movement speed buff. You can really just do it all with Bangalore. Her ultimate did get nerfed recently, which is weird because even though Bangalore is at the top of this tier list, she is the most balanced legend in the entire game, which that is really impressive. The ultimate's best case is just to scare off enemies. I hardly ever hit people with the ultimate, but when I do, it is satisfying. I mainly use the ultimate as an aggressive push away team tool. And yeah, with that, here's my Apex Legends Season 18 tier list. I really hope I get these predictions right for the new changes for the Legends next patch. Yeah, let me know what you agreed on for this tier list. Let me know what you would have done differently. My goal was to rank each legend based on how effective they could be on the battlefield, and I hope I did good service to that. I hope you have enjoyed. Remember to like, and I hope to see you in the next one.